difficulties, but we're live. Here we go. I hope that the sound is okay. There's something weird going on with my plug-in microphone, so it's just the phone. So hopefully you can hear me. I will try to speak loudly enough that you can hear what's going on. So welcome, my name is Jenny. This is a restore practice. And tonight, or today, whatever time it is that you are practicing, we are going to just be getting into a nice full body kind of release. And to do that, you may want to gather some props. So you can grab a block or two if you have them. If not, you can use books, something of a similar size or shape to this. Some sort of cushion can be nice. I've got my trusty bolster, but if you don't have one of those, you can use couch cushions, a stack of pillows, a big thick blanket rolled up, bunch of pillows. I think I already said that. You could also grab some various sizes of blankets. So take a moment to gather props. These are used just to bring in some support, sometimes bring the ground closer, helping us to surrender a little more deeper to the pose without pushing it physically too far. So take a moment to gather some props. I'm going to grab a book. Awesome, found what I was looking for. So, got your props. Let's get started. So we will start in a child's pose. So your choice, how you'd like to set this up. We'll be coming onto the knees. If you want to kneel on a blanket, especially if you have a harder surface that you're practicing on, that can be nice for the knees. You can just come into a regular child's pose, either knees together or knees out wide as you bow forward, head and chest release down. You can use props to support you. You can place a bolster or some sort of cushion, some sort of support here. It's slided in between the legs. As you lower down, perhaps finding some support for the head. You could create a little ramp here for yourself to lie down. Arms can be extended. They could be just resting on the forearms. You could bring them alongside the body. However you'd like to set up your child's pose. Allowing yourself some time to settle in. You could also take puppy pose. So the difference is puppy pose has the hips lifted. Child's pose, hips are lowered. So just whatever feels best for you. Releasing down. Feeling into the grounding of this pose. Releasing through the head, neck, and shoulders. Opening up through the back side of the body. Releasing through the hips. You're welcome to close the eyes or soften the gaze. Taking a moment to kind of tune in to your external environment. With any home practice, there can be potential distractions, but it's a great opportunity to really commit to this time that you're dedicating to yourself. Because we can't control what happens outside of us, but we can control how we react to it. So if we can mindfully notice the things that are around us, the potential distractions, but not allow them to upset us, not allow them to pull our attention away. Just letting them be a part of the experience, part of your mindful practice. Noticing any sounds, any smells. Perhaps noticing the temperature of the air on your skin. And you may be hearing some sounds from my end, or sounds from your end. And just accepting those for what they are, letting them go, and allowing them to help you become just a little more present into your surroundings. Starting to check in with the body. Since we're starting in a shape, there'll probably be some sensation in the knees, the legs, the hips, the back, the shoulders, the chest. Notice those, but also expand a little wider to just what's going on in the body in general. What are you carrying with you today? What are you bringing onto your mat? Without judgment or expectation, just truly observing, getting curious about what's going on in the body, perhaps feeling into parts of the body that you maybe haven't connected to in a while. And it's typical as we start to slow down the mind that our holding patterns or our stresses start to manifest in the body. So it might be some tension in the neck, some tightness in the back, some tension in the low back or in the hips. It could also manifest in areas where we have injuries, old or new, acute or chronic. But usually the bodily sensations are the first thing that we tune into when we start to be present to the moment. And those things can also help us anchor in. And this tuning in to the body isn't to have any sense of control over the body, but to allow our body to be as it is, knowing that it will change, it will shift. Our bodies are in constant motion, even when we're still. We're not trying to fix or change anything. Not looking to control the body, we're just looking to connect. Starting to notice the breath. And there are many different ways that you can connect to the breath through this practice. It could be simply observing it in its natural, spontaneous flow. You could work to bring some balance to the breath, evening out the inhale and the exhale, not getting caught up in counting or anything, but just working to balance out the length of each. You could work with some deep belly breathing, letting the belly soften on the inhale, creating more space for the lungs to expand, and drawing the belly in on the exhale, working to press all the air out. You could also play with Ujjayi breath, finding activation of the muscles in the back of the throat to bring a beautiful audible quality to the breath, to help you tune in, to help bring a little rest and ease into the body. So you have all those tools available to you to connect to the breath throughout your practice in whatever way suits you in any given moment. The observation, the balancing, the lengthening, and the Ujjayi. So as I encourage you to come back to the breath, you've got all those options to explore. You're not locked into one. Just working with what is best for you. As you continue to connect to the breath and to the body, acknowledge what's going on for you energetically, emotionally. The thoughts that arise, allow them to, once again, just be a part of the process, be a part of the experience. Just like our external environment, not allowing them to pull our attention away, not allowing those thoughts to pull us into the past or project us into the future. Be present to them, witness and observe them. Make the choice if it's something that you want to keep, maybe store away to think about later, or if it's something that you want to let go. And while you continue to connect to this grounding pose, or child's pose, or puppy pose, as you continue to connect to the body, to the breath, and to the mind, I want to share just a little excerpt, a couple paragraphs from After the Ecstasy, the Laundry by Jack Kornfield, about cultivating an honorable practice. We live in disordered times, complicated, distracted, and demanding. Yet to sustain a spiritual practice demands our steady attention. The first task in any personal voyage is to quiet ourselves enough to listen to the voices of our heart, to listen to that which is beyond our daily affairs. Whether in prayer or meditation, in visualization, fasting, practice, or song, we need to step out of our usual roles, out of the busy days on automatic pilot. We need to find a way to become receptive and open. The heart needs inspiration for renewal. It needs support to find forgiveness, to awaken freedom, and to open to grace. We must find a vessel, an honorable practice to carry us on this journey, a trustworthy discipline that is able to bring us back to the present and open us up to mystery, not in order to become someone else or fix ourselves, but in order to see who we really are. I love that idea, and it's one of the things that attracted me to yoga, is that our own personal journeys are so individual, and the different practices, rituals, ceremonies, whatever it is that speak to us are going to be different. But it's important to notice which ones speak to you, which ones can help you step outside of yourself, can help you be a little more present. And those are the ones to really latch onto and really devote yourself to. Because it does take devotion and discipline in any given practice to reap the full benefits. So allow some of that energy, some of that vibe to enter your practice. Knowing that everything that I say is simply a suggestion. I am here as a guide to keep you present, to hold space, to connect you to your breath. But you are the true teacher. Your own inner guidance, your own intuition, the messages that you receive through the body, through your introspection, the things that come up for you, those are the real lessons. That's where the gold is. So get curious about those things. Get curious about your body. Get curious about your practice. And really allow this practice to be whatever it is that you need it to be. Taking a few more rounds of breath in our child's pose. And as you feel ready, we'll slowly start to make our way up to hands and knees. You can remove any props that you may have been using to support you. You can still stay kneeling on the blanket if that feels right for you. Find a solid connection to the hands as we lengthen out through the crown of the head. Find a solid connection down to the knees as you lengthen out through the tailbone. Doesn't matter the position of the hands or the knees, just find what feels good for you. So practice coming more narrow, more wide, forward, back, turning in, turning out. Alignment is such an individual thing because every body is different. So then once you find when you feel nice and sturdy in your base, we'll move through some cat-cow, some spinal flexion, dropping the belly, tilting the pelvis up, gaze could lift, heart shines forward. And then we round out, tucking the chin, tucking the tail, drawing the belly in and up as we round through the spine. Move through this at your own pace, connecting to your breath. If you'd like to link the breath to the movement, you're welcome to inhale as you drop the belly, smiling through the spine. And exhaling as you round out, tucking in. But you don't have to do one breath per movement. You could simply move and breathe in whichever way feels intuitive to you. And you're welcome to continue here, or if you'd like to bring in some freestyle movements, feel free. Maybe you circle a little bit more through the torso. Maybe you serpentine through the spine, kind of taking a little snake action here. You can bring some more movement into the joints, shifting forward towards a gentle upward dog, shifting back towards that same child's pose shape. You could circle through the hips, circle through the head. Anything that feels good here. We'll take about 7 to 10 rounds of exploratory breath here. Moving through the whole body. Finding what feels good. Tuning into sensations, staying aware of the thoughts that arise. And without letting any of those be a distraction from your present moment, let them bring you more fully into your moment, that present moment awareness. Awesome work. We'll be on the knees for a little bit longer, so maybe for these last few rounds of breath, you stretch the legs back, give the knees a little break. And as you feel ready, we're going to set up a thread the needle. So you can take this again from with like a puppy pose with the hips raised up, or you could sink the hips back into a child's pose. And what we're going to do is we're going to shift the weight into the left hand. We'll extend the right arm out to the side, or it could reach up towards the sky. And then we'll thread the arm underneath the left, dropping the shoulder and the head down. So again, you've got those hips raised, or you could send the hips back, maybe even taking the knees out wide. Left arm could stay extended overhead, or excuse me, it could stay planted. It could extend overhead. You could also release that hand up towards the sky, resting it at the low back. Those different options with the arms is just going to switch up the sensation. So where you feel the twist, where you feel the stretch, what's going on in the chest. So take your time to find what feels good here, and then settle in. Connecting to your breath. Feeling the sensations in the body. And again, knowing that you are not locked in, so you don't have to make one shape and stick with it. It can be beneficial to find stillness in a pose, but we don't want to force the body to stay in a shape that doesn't feel healthy, that doesn't feel safe. If it feels like it's going to create pain or injury in the body, or perhaps trigger the nervous system, then we don't want to choose that. There's enough suffering, there's enough pain in our daily lives that we don't need to actively choose pain or create pain in our practice. We don't need to suffer through our practice. But there's also a difference between pain and suffering and just being uncomfortable. While yoga can be relaxing, it can bring a sense of calm and ease into the body, it's not meant to put us in our comfort zone. It's meant to allow us to learn to stay present and breathe through the uncomfortableness, to lean into the uncomfortable sensations, lean into the uncomfortable situations we find ourselves in. Be present, breathe through them, and get curious about them. Connecting to your breath. Checking in with the neck. The gaze could be over towards the left, or the gaze could be down towards the ground. Forehead connecting to the earth. You could also rest the head on a pillow or a blanket. We'll be here for about 3 to 5 more rounds of breath. Beautiful work. As you feel ready to come out, we'll replant that left hand if it's traveled away. We'll lengthen through the spine first, and then we'll start to untwist. You could just release that right arm. You could send it out to the side. You could reach it up towards the sky for a counter stretch, and then we'll return to our tabletop here and take about 5 to 7 rounds of breath and some more freestyle movement, whatever feels good for you here. If you'd like to get off the knees and it doesn't feel counterintuitive to a restore practice, you could lift the knees, come into a downward dog, or all those options to explore. You can create ones of your own. And then as you feel ready, I'm just going to flip around. We'll set up our tabletop on the other side, and then we'll come to a tabletop and we'll set up our thread the needle on the other side. So bringing the weight into the right hand, we'll extend that left arm out to the side. You could reach up towards the sky, and then we'll release the arm, thread it underneath, shoulder and ear drop down towards the ground. Again, your choice if the hips stay raised with the knees underneath the hips, or if you want to take the knees out wide, maybe big toes come to touch, sending the hips back. So again, just different sensations with the placement of the hips. You can also explore different sensation with the placement of that right arm. It could stay bent, elbow bent, hand placed on the ground. It could reach overhead like in child's pose. It could reach up towards the sky or rest at the low back. Whatever feels best for you. Noticing the differences on each side without judgment. Just simply observing, gathering information, learning. We've got asymmetries, imbalances in the body. Some are natural, some are just the way we're built. Some are from our holding patterns, where we store our tension, where we store our emotions, where we store our traumas. Sometimes it's from injuries or surgeries. So we want to honor what's going on in each side of the body without forcing. Again, without choosing to create more pain or suffering. But choosing to lean into uncomfortableness. Connecting to your breath. Feeling into the body. And observing the thoughts.
And checking in with the neck, the gaze could be over towards the right, or you can plant the forehead on the ground, find a nice neutral neck. Tuning into sensation, feeling into the body, which that in itself can be uncomfortable. So much of our society is meant to distract us, to pull us out of our bodies, out of our minds, and just distract us with outer stuff. So sometimes it can be uncomfortable just to feel the body. And especially if those holding patterns start to arise, where we store our tensions. Be present. Body can teach us a lot. It wants to function at 100%, and it's constantly sending us messages in order to do that. What it needs to be able to do that. It's our interoception. It's how we know when we are hungry, when we need to use the restroom, when we need to drink more water. Sometimes we're good at listening to that, and sometimes not. But it tells us other things too. It tells us when things are wrong. It tells us when the food we eat isn't what is going to be the best fuel for the body. It can tell us when energies are off, when emotions are there. So we want to build and strengthen a respectful relationship to the body where we listen, we receive, and we respond accordingly. Just like any relationship, the more you put into it, the more you strengthen those bonds, the stronger those bonds become, and the more clear the messages from the body will become. Awesome work. A couple more rounds of breath. And when you feel ready, planting that right hand if it's traveled away. It will lengthen through the spine first, and then we'll untwist. In your choice, if you just come back to tabletop, that left arm could reach out to the side or up towards the sky as we come back down through our tabletop. If you'd like to take another few rounds of breath here, and a little exploration, little reset. And then when you're ready, we're going to make our way onto our seat. We're going to be stretching the legs a wee bit and kind of doing some counter stretching back and forth. So it might be a good idea to sit up on a blanket. And what this can do is bringing a little lift in the booty, creates more space in the hips, and as we work to fold forward, it can help us get to that fulcrum point. So for some of us, especially if we have tighter hips or low back, to get into forward folds, we don't even have the flexibility to get to that fulcrum point, so our forward folds end up being spinal flexion. So this lift in the booty can help get that nice length in the spine, get us forward enough to where then we can actually find the forward fold in the hips and in the low back. So, grab a blanket. You may want to have some sort of something back behind you, because if you want to take it further, and I'll explain what we're getting into, you might want to have something to lean back on. So we're going to bring this into a quad stretch. So we're going to kick the right heel back behind us. And if this is really intense in the knee, especially if you've had surgeries or injuries there, and the blanket just isn't quite enough lift, bring in a block or some sort of lift there. That's going to take the pressure off of the knee. This is still an intense bend, so
just notice if that works for you, and if it doesn't, then find something different. Create a shape that feels best for you. So, having this nice stretch through the quad, you're welcome to stay upright. You can bring the hands back behind you, maybe starting to lean back, finding a little more sensation here in the hips and the hip flexor, down through the quad. You could start to lower down towards the left elbow. Perhaps it comes down onto a block, or whatever you've got going on back there. So you can kind of lean off to the side, more to the left side. That will also take some of the pressure off the knee. Might be a little more gentle on that quad. You could also bring both elbows to your prop or to the ground, knowing that that is going to start to create some arching, some back bending. So stay in tune with that. If it feels good, awesome. Rock with it, roll with it. I guess both work. Rock it, roll with it. There, I don't know. So just finding whatever level feels best for you. Now, some of you may be able to go all the way back onto your backs. That's a little intense. Let's not do that. Even if you can, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. So even if you're not, we don't want to start at 100% of our flexibility, because we're going to be holding this. And there's a tendency to go deeper the longer we hold. So we don't want to start at 100% of our flexibility, and then as the body releases and goes deeper, it takes us too deep and it starts to cause pain or injury. If you're feeling some stress in the neck, especially if you're back on the elbows, you could also use some props to create a little release for the head. That feels good. Actually feels nice, little lengthening. Do the neck. But it all depends on whatever props you have and what is working for you. Find your breath. Stay in tune with the sensations in the body. Notice the thoughts. And when the mind starts to wander, because it will, we're humans, it's what it does, it's what we do. Use it as an opportunity to practice your mindfulness, to notice, oh, I just started going through my to-do list. I just started planning what I'm having for dinner. Or I just went off on a tangent that doesn't even make sense. Or just created a situation in my head that is never going to actually come to fruition. Whatever it is, use that as an opportunity. First, celebrate when you notice, because that is mindfulness at work, and that right there is strengthening that connection, the neuroreceptor of, oh, I was on autopilot, oh, I was spacing out. And then use that to gently but firmly come back to your present moment, strengthening that mind-body connection, strengthening that present moment awareness. This is a practice. We will never perfect it. No one is perfect. Perfect is an illusion, a social construct that does not actually exist. And if you are a perfectionist, learn to let it go. I know, easier said than done. The perfection, you'll never strive perfection. Practice does not make perfect. Practice just makes more practice. Gives us more to practice. Awesome work. As you feel ready, we'll start to make our way up. Take your time with this. Slowly starting to raise back up to seated position. And we're going to untuck through that leg. So you can use the hands as a little assist here. We're going to bring the right foot to the inner edge of the left leg, wherever it wants to go.
And then we're gonna let that right knee drop open. So we're making kind of a tree shape, a little seated tree, if you are familiar with that pose. Or we're just opening up through the hip. So as you let that knee hang heavy, you could fill in the space if you've got tight hips like me. You can fill in that space with a prop. The foot can be anywhere down by the ankle, all the way up by the inner thigh. Just find what sensation works best for you. And then this is where we're going to find a little bit of forward folding. This is definitely where that cushion and underneath the booty will come in handy. Flex the left toes back so we protect the left knee joint. Lengthen up through the crown of the head. You could extend the arms up if you want, that's not necessary. And then when you're ready, we'll slowly start to bow forward, but think of going up and then over. And if that part is hard for you, the up and over, add more cushion underneath the booty. Lengthen up and over, leading with the heart. Doesn't matter how far you're coming down. Pause when you feel that natural resistance, because again, we're going to be holding it here. So we don't want to start at 100% of our flexibility. Check in with that left knee. If even with the toes flexed back and even bringing a little softness in the knee, if that still puts some strain on the knee that doesn't feel awesome, slide a pillow or a blanket or something underneath that knee. The leg doesn't have to be completely straight. Notice how this is feeling in the hip, in the leg. You can continue to lead with the heart with a nice straight spine, or you could tuck the chin in towards the chest, releasing the head down, finding a release through the head, neck, and shoulders. You can also use props to create a little configuration to rest the head. This is when two blocks would come in handy. But you can use any sort of configuration of props. Bring in, pillow, cushion, anything to create a release if you want. So again, you've got all those options. Finding what works for you. We're letting that right knee hang heavy. But again, we don't want to go too deep, so that's when a prop can come in handy. Connect to the breath. Feel into the body. Observe the mind, all with just curiosity. Get curious about what's going on in your internal environment. Almost like a scientist, just gathering information. Haven't yet formed any hypothesis, you're just collecting data, seeing what's going on. And again, knowing that you're not locked into a pose. My body's asking me to go a little bit deeper. I feel really good to find a little more sensation in the low back, so I adjusted so that I could do so. Your body might be asking you to go a little deeper or to back off. Or perhaps you found your little Goldilocks spot and you just want to chill and breathe. Connect into the breath in whatever way feels right for you. A few more rounds of breath on this side. And when you feel ready, nice and slow, coming out of your forward fold, setting props aside.
You can use the hands to assist the knee in raising it back up. Stretching out through the legs, feel free to shake them out. Take any counter stretches here that would feel good, anything you'd like to do to reset between sides. And then when you are ready, my friends, we will just take that little series on the other side. So we'll start with the quad stretch on the left leg. So bending that left leg, kicking the heel back. And you may want to be sitting up on a blanket. You could also lift the booty a little higher to take the pressure off of that knee. You want to have a little something, something behind you to lean back on to bring the ground closer. Maybe this is where you stay. Maybe there's enough sensation here in the quad that you're like, I'm solid, I'm golden, let's stay here. If you do want to explore a little deeper into the sensation, you could bring the hands back behind you, leaning back, maybe starting by putting a little more weight onto that right side, right hand, so that you're not putting as much weight on that left leg. You could come down to the right elbow on a block, on a bolster, on some sort of elevated apparatus, or on the ground. You can also bring both elbows down, recognizing that's going to start to create some arching in the low back, so stay in tune to how that feels. And again, some of us might be able to take it all the way down to the ground. That is an extreme shape for the body. I wouldn't recommend it. It is not necessary to contort the body into crazier shapes than we already do. Yoga is awkward enough as it is. But we don't need to force. And you can also bring in a little support for the head. How did I have that last time? Yeah, that's too far. A good sign that you've gone too far is if as you start to lean back, the left knee starts to raise off the ground. We want to keep that left knee on the ground. That doesn't feel awesome on this side. So I'm just going to stick with what feels good. We do want to challenge the body. We don't want to just hang out in our comfort zone. We do want to we want to find that edge and kind of play with it, but not forcing it, not taking it again into pain or injury. You don't want to choose that. You don't want to choose suffering. So there's enough of that already that we get to, or that we are forced to endure as part of this human experience, that we don't need to create more of it for us, but that is what we do. We create more pain and suffering for ourselves, not just in our physical bodies, but through the distorted perception of our lenses. The way that we view the world, we create more pain and suffering when we're not aware of our holding patterns, when we're not aware of our defense mechanisms, when we're not aware of our habitual responses. And that's what these mindful practices can also help us do, is noticing those knee-jerk reactions, noticing the self-talk, especially the negative self-talk. Start to notice the things that distort your lens. You start to notice the things that create a perpetual cycle of suffering. You start to notice the ways that you are choosing to create more suffering. Or I should say we, because I do it too. I'm not immune to it. Teachers, even gurus, even the most enlightened of people, they still choose their own suffering at times. They still have their own BS that they deal with. It's part of the human experience, but the more we become aware of it, the more we can mindfully navigate it. Beautiful work. As you feel ready, we'll slowly make our way up and out of this. Coming back up to a seat, and you can use the hands to gently untuck that left leg. We'll take our little fallen tree pose, or seated tree pose.
So bringing the left foot anywhere along the inside of the right leg, letting that left knee drop open, flexing the right toes back. You could also slide a little support underneath that left knee or right knee, especially if you're sitting up on a on some sort of cushion or blanket. That's going to raise where the leg is, and so the back of the leg may not touch the ground or may not have as much support, so there might be a tendency for the knee to sink down and to there be a little hyperextension, putting pressure on the knee. So feel free to fill in that space with a blanket, a pillow, anything. And then we'll work on our forward fold. So remember, we're going up and over. So that's where that cushion can come in handy. Hands can reach up, but not necessary. Hands could just walk forward. Pausing when you start to feel resistance, not when you get to 100% of your flexibility, when you start to feel sensation. And then again, you can stay with the heart leading, nice long spine. You can tuck the chin in towards the chest, releasing through the head, neck, and shoulders. You can create with your props a little configuration to support the head if you'd like. Props are there. Props are your friend. Props can get a bad rap that they're only for beginners, or that they're only there to use until you don't need them. I've been practicing for many, many moons, and I still use props in every single class. Every single class, not just restore or yin when they're more encouraged. A vinyasa flow, hatha, any sort of class I'm taking. I always grab at least one block, and usually a blanket if they have them, because I am one of those with tight hips, tight low back that needs a little lift in the booty. I like it to pad up the knees. Basically, props are your friend. The ego may tell you differently, but we're working to check the ego. The ego doesn't always know what is best for you. It does what's best for it. Which is funny, because the ego exists for our own self-preservation. That's when the ego can come in handy. The ego helps us to, survive. But the ego wants control. The ego wants to take charge. That's when we need to keep it in its place. Let it serve the purpose that it was designed to, and not give it any more power. Awesome work. And knowing that you can shift and adjust. We've got about 5 to 7 more rounds of breath here. And when you feel ready, whenever that is, we'll slowly start to make our way back up to seat. Using the hand to bring the knee up, releasing through the legs, maybe shaking them out. You could plant the feet wider than hip distance and take some windshield wipers. You could take any movements that would feel good here. And then take a few moments to do anything that will help round out your practice. Anything that the body's craving, anything that would feel extra awesome. Maybe there's something that you were hoping that we would do that we didn't get to, or a way that you like to wrap up your practice. But take about the next minute or so to just explore. Do any final movements. If you need a little inspiration, some of my favorites are coming down onto the back, drawing the knees in towards the chest. You could rock side to side. You could circle through the knees. You could extend the legs up towards the sky, coming into an inversion, maybe shaking out through the legs. Shaking is so good for the nervous system. You could take a happy baby. You could take a twist. You could take a reclined pigeon. Anything you want. You got it. Because you can do it. And then whenever you feel ready, we'll start to set up our Shavasana, or our final relaxation pose. Now this is whatever position you'd like to take that you feel like you could surrender to. So typically, corpse pose, on the back, palms turned up, toes turned out. If you're feeling receptive, palms turned up. If you want more grounding, palms turned down or resting on the belly. But if that doesn't serve you in this moment, you can lie on your side, you can lie on your belly. You can use props to support you in any way. One of my favorites is in corpse pose, bringing some sort of cushion underneath the knees to help bring a little relief in the low back. Maybe a little blanket for the head. You could wrap up in a blanket. And just any position that you'd like to take that you could fully release to. You could fully surrender. Taking your time to get there. And the goal here, there's a few. The big one is just letting it all go. Releasing the body, releasing the breath, releasing the mind. Just finding stillness. So we do want to be in a position where we feel like we could hold it for a duration, just a couple minutes. But where we can find true stillness. That really helps to bring a sense of relaxation and ease into the mind and into the body. It can help to calm the nervous system. This pose can be a challenge because it asks us to get into a restful position, to release completely, but to stay present. So don't worry if you fall asleep. It happens all the time. Sometimes that's just what your body needs. Or sometimes your brain is like, oh, cool, bedtime, good night. But if you can, stay present. Stay present as you surrender. To really notice the full effects of your mindful practice. To really tune into the mind and the body. And to really be mindful as you just let yourself be. distorted times, complicated, distracted, and demanding. Yet to sustain a spiritual practice demands our steady attention. The first task in most any personal voyage is to quiet ourselves enough to listen to the voices of our hearts, to listen to that which is beyond our daily affairs, whether in prayer or meditation, in visualization, fasting, practice, or song. We need to step out of our usual roles, out of the busy days on automatic pilot. We need to find a way to become receptive and open. The heart needs inspiration for renewal. It needs support to find forgiveness, to awaken freedom, to open to grace. We must find a vessel, an honorable practice to carry us on this journey, a trustworthy discipline that is able to bring us back to the present and open us to the mystery, not in order to become someone else or to fix ourselves, but in order to see who we really are. And that's by Jack Kornfield in the book After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. As you feel ready, gently start to bring some movement back into the body. If you're lying down and not there, you're welcome to, I'll invite you to roll onto one side of the body. And gently pressing your way back up to a comfortable seat. I'll invite you to bring the hands to heart center, maybe placing them over the heart. And just taking a moment of gratitude for yourself, for carving out this time, for dedicating yourself to this mindful practice, for giving yourself this bit of self-care as you tend to the mind, to the body, and to the heart. Thank you so much for joining me in my home, for allowing me into your homes to share the magic of yoga. I see you, I honor you, and I bow to you. Namaste. Thank you again to all of you who joined me live. Hopefully the sound was okay. I do these classes donation-based, so if you are in a position and would like to donate, I have left a link, or I've left my Venmo in the description, so you can pay it forward, keep the good vibes going. However, if you are needing this as a gift, I'm happy to give it to you today. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for more exciting news from Mosaic Yoga. We will be opening a studio this summer. Super excited about that. We've got lots of fun details, lots of fun events coming up for that. You can also check us out on our Patreon account if you want to support Mosaic Yoga as a whole. That does give you your Patreon account, or your patronage does give you full access to our YouTube channel, which has every video that we've ever made throughout this whole pandemic, so over the past year plus. So, you know, hundreds of videos there. Check it out. Feel free to DM me with any questions, any requests. If you'd like to practice with me in person, I am teaching at a few places in Salt Lake. So thank you so much. Take care.